Rob from Grind City Media, also the Memphis Grizzlies pre- and post-game host, also on the sidelines on Bally Sports. Hosts a couple of baseball podcasts. Also covers lots of college. Basically, you do everything, Rob. I mean, if you're in the middle of the country, if you're in Tennessee, you got a lot to pay attention to, and it sounds like pay attention to all of it.
I do, but although right now the only thing I'm paying attention to is this beautiful view that I have of the Gulf of Mexico down here. I'm sitting on the beach. That's how much I love Drew Barrett, you guys.
I appreciate
I'm
it,
sitting
Rob.
on the beach in the middle of my vacation, watching the waves, beautiful day, but here I am talking with you guys. So, great to be with you guys.
I heard the quality of your show dropped immensely once Drew stopped producing it. And once he joined our show here, man, I mean, we have done nothing but win award after award after award. Yeah, so
that's right.
You know Drew very well. You know what it's like to work with this kid.
Yeah, I don't know how our show was so good with Drew. It was amazing. But then just went straight downhill after he left. But enjoy hearing Drew. It was great to see him at SEC Media Days and talk a little college football. It's college football season now. Talking season's underway, and we're right around the corner from camp, and then the games will be here before you know it.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. And you got plenty to talk about if you're in Tennessee as far as Tennessee football is concerned. We had Connor O'Gara on earlier. He thinks Tennessee might have, as he used the term, shot the moon by potentially not facing major penalties, which maybe a few years ago that things might have been a little bit different. Do you have a sense that Tennessee, by the actions, by getting rid of almost the administration and the coaching staff and self-reporting as much as they did, that they actually might have dodged some of these penalties?
I think that's the hope. And heck, we're going through it at Memphis with the basketball program. You know how long these things take. And with the Memphis basketball program, they kind of defied the NCAA, so I think everyone's expecting them to get harsh penalties. But for Tennessee, like you mentioned, I mean, they got rid of the coach, got rid of the staff, then all these things came out. Now more is coming out. So I think their hope would be, since they got rid of the coach and they did so in such a quick manner, that, maybe the NCAA won't be as harsh on Tennessee as potentially they could be. So I think that's the hope with UT, and I think they might be right. As I said, for how long these things drag on and drag out, hopefully it's nothing that's going to hurt Tennessee here in the near future, because, they went through a 3-coach period that you'd be hard-pressed to find a 3-coach, with 3 coaches hired in a row that turned out worse than what's happened with Tennessee. The Butch Jones thing was a disaster. Derek Dooley was an even bigger disaster. And now Jeremy Pruitt, an even bigger disaster if possible. So it was just a horrible run, and now things are looking better with Josh Heupel, and the offense is looking like it's fun. A lot of people are making Tennessee that chic second pick in the East this year. I don't think anybody's making the crazy pick other than Georgia and Alabama this season, but, it's a race for second. I think a lot of people like Tennessee as second in the East, and that'd be a huge leap for them. It'd be a nice change of direction, going in the right way for once in a long time for Tennessee. So this news is kind of depressing, but hopefully it'll go away, and hopefully the NCAA won't be as harsh, because Tennessee did take some action.
Hopefully, everything that you just laid out will be true, but we've also seen, the NCAA be so weird about these things where it doesn't matter if you cooperate or you go against them, that they're going to lay down the law either way. Rob, before we move on to baseball, I do have to know, and I do just want to make sure to clear your name on this. You weren't the person that voted Vandy as the SEC champion at Media Days, were you?
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay, good.
But Clark Lee did say it's just a matter of time before Vanderbilt is the best program in America. So now they have lost 21 straight SEC games. So I think it's going to take a while for that to happen. I don't think they're going to win an SEC game this year. I just don't see that. Man, they got the best deal going in all of college athletics. Just sitting there in the SEC, making all this money. I saw a stat today that from 2025 to 2035, they're going to make $1 billion. Vanderbilt, their football program. That's incredible. That they have one of the best spots in all of college football, and securing that spot. You know, college football goes to a couple of mega conferences. Just to think that Vanderbilt's a part of it is kind of amazing.
It truly is amazing to think that Vanderbilt and Rutgers is going to win and still play major college football from here till the end of time, because they seem to luck out. Now, going from the best spot in college athletics from Vandy to something that you're a part of, the quote unquote best fans in baseball, how do you see the Cardinals, making a run in the second half? Because it's not out of reach. I mean, they're only 2.5 games behind the Brewers, but we've all known through most of the season that it was going to be how do you catch the Brewers?
Yeah, it's been a little frustrating as a Cardinal fan because it just feels like the Cardinals' success is based on the Brewers' failures right now. You know, the Cardinals, it seems, have had an opportunity to take the Central Division, and they just haven't. Why is that? Well, they have a lack of pitching, and despite the fact they have arguably the two best players at their individual position in Goldschmidt and Arenado, they still need more bats in the lineup. I'm excited about the Soto news. I think it would be great to add that bat to the lineup, especially for the future of this franchise. But you still have a hole at pitching. I mean, it's pretty dreadful with the Cardinals lineup. When you get past the top four in the order, you just feel like they're automatic outs. So to add another bat would be great. But Adam Wainwright hasn't won since June 27th. He hasn't won in his last 4 starts. He's 0-3 in those 4 starts. He gave up 7 runs in his last start, which is just as many runs as he gave up the entire month of May. Dakota Hudson's been throwing batting practice. Miles Michaelis got lit by the Cincinnati Reds yesterday. Steven Matz comes back on Saturday and then has a tear in his MCL. He's back on the injured list. So the pitching's a nightmare, too. I don't think Soto's bat necessarily puts the Cardinals in the playoffs. I think a pitcher would be more important by the trade deadline next week. We'll see if the Cardinals are in the mix on any of that. My expectation as a Cardinal fan is that maybe a minor move here, maybe some bullpen help. I don't expect a major move, despite the fact that we keep hearing all these reports about them being willing to offer Juan Soto $500 million. You do that, I think the Cardinals are tapped out, and I still don't think that's good enough to win.
But that also goes on top of, if you're trading for Juan Soto, what does Washington expect? Like, are you mortgaging the future of the franchise by going after Soto, and you don't even know if you can sign him again? I don't think the Cardinals have the base of a team right now to really make a run, and it's because of the injuries more than anything pitching. Like, I mean, you don't have the bats in the lineup behind Arenado and Goldschmidt. Too many injuries on the mound right now.
No doubt about it, and that's why the Soto thing is. It's fun. I mean, heck, anytime your team's involved in getting one of the best players in the game, yeah, that's exciting. That's a lot of fun. I just don't think it's the answer for that team because of what you just mentioned. There are bigger question marks, bigger holes in that pitching staff. And when you look at a best-of-3 series, best-of-5 series, best-of-7 series, you better have the staff. And I don't think the Cardinals have that right now. So that's where I would be more intrigued for them making moves. But, you know, hey, if you want to get Juan Soto, let's go for it. That'd be a lot of fun. But I just don't think that's the answer for the Cardinals right now. Hey, Brewers haven't played great baseball, so Cardinals will stick around till the end. You know, you shore up the pitching just a little bit. Maybe Matt doesn't look like he's going to come back now. But, you know, if you're going to trade Liberatore, I mean, who's your next guy that's going to come up and fill that gap? So I think there are a lot more questions going in this trade deadline than the Cardinals even want to admit.
It's the worst division in baseball right now. But just think about what you're trading by trading Juan Soto, and really just the destruction and demolition of that Nationals championship from just 3 years ago. I mean, you had Scherzer leave, Rendon left, Soto's going to leave, Harper's gone.
Strasburg's been injured the whole time.
Right. It's tough to keep these winning teams together. I think Soto sees that. He does not want to be the thing that a team is built around. He wants to go somewhere that's sort of already built and get paid to do it. I think it's New York. I think it's the Mets or it's the Dodgers.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's crazy just talking about those 3 teams. But, I mean, the Dodgers, they just keep adding and keep adding. You know, the Mets and the Yankees, you always expect them possibly to make some sort of move like this. You know, if the Yankees were to make a move like this and sign Soto to the $500 million, well, my goodness, what are they going to do with Aaron Judge? I mean, This is the guy who's the best player in baseball. How much are you going to sign him for? It would have to be more than that. So I think it'd be very interesting to see the Yankees go that route. And does that mean the end of Aaron Judge? And he might even be more valuable than Juan Soto on the market. So, yeah, you're going to have to give up a lot. I guess the other team that was mentioned was San Francisco making that sort of deal. But, San Francisco at this point, I don't know if you're poised to make a run for this year. Maybe that'd be something more so in your future. But if that's the case, why not wait till the end of the season when he's a free agent, see if you can make a move at that point and woo him at that point. So, yeah, I don't think there are a lot of teams capable of making this trade. And the ones that are capable are those usual suspects that you mentioned. So that's why it's hard for me to believe that the Cardinals are a team that's in the mix, or the Padres for that matter, being in the mix. And I know early on Cardinals and Padres were the two favorites to land him. So that would surprise me. It'll be really interesting here in this next week. I think he'll be moved. I just don't know where at this point.
Now, Rob, as we are in the second half of the season, half of the divisions are pretty much all locked up with double-digit leads, and then the other half are pretty interesting. I think, the Twins have a 3-game lead on the Guardians, 1.5 games back of the Braves. Then, like we talked about with the Cardinals and the Brewers, just right there. Out of those three that we actually could see some movement and see some changing of a possible division winner, out of those three divisions, which ones do you think is going to be the most exciting to watch down the stretch?
I think the National League East, just because the Mets and the Braves are good. You look at the American League Central, and yeah, Twins got that lead. They're holding on to it. Guardians they're the youngest team in baseball. Heck, they're the youngest team in AAA baseball, which is amazing. And Francona's done a great job with that team. So I imagine they'll hang around, but I don't know if they got enough to get over the top. The White Sox have been right at 500 all season. They just can't get over that hump. They've been marred with injuries all year. The Tony LaRussa thing with the fans has been kind of a little bit of a distraction as well. So I just don't – the sample size is too big for me to think the White Sox are suddenly going to go on a tear. The National League Central, like I said before, it's a 2-team race, Cardinals and Brewers, and it just feels like that one's a war of attrition. The one that can just outlast the other at the end, they'll be the one. The Braves and the Mets, that's the one that's exciting, because I think they're two really good teams. And the Braves, it's not like the Mets have lost this big lead they had in the division. The Braves have come to take that lead in this division. And to see themselves just a game and a half back, they got a big 5-game series coming up next week, which could go a long way. Mets got DeGrom coming back here in the next week. So I think that's going to be a heck of a race for the rest of the way. And which of those teams will either one of them be active at the deadline? Braves were really active subtly last year, and it helped them win the World Series. How active are they going to be at this trade deadline? How active are the Mets going to be? Will they try to go out and get themselves a catcher like a Wilson Contreras possibly at the trade deadline, which could be a huge move for them? So I think the Braves and Mets, that's going to be the one that's going to have the most intrigue, because I think they're both playoff teams, but certainly you want that division. I think they'll fight it out through the end.
Real quick, Rob, you brought up all the turmoil and distraction that it has been. Tony LaRussa with the White Sox on the South Side, is his days numbered? Is this going to be the last season for him as the manager?
Well, I know when they hired him, the biggest regret that they had, that ownership group had, was firing Tony LaRussa like 30 years ago. So, but this is 30 years later. I imagine, this is an ownership hire, so it would have to be an ownership fire. I think it's very difficult to do. If the White Sox somehow can pull off this division, I think he'd be fine. If they don't, I think there'd be too much pressure that they'd have to make a move. And when you have the pressure from the fans who are chanting to fire Tony, and when you have moves that Tony has made this year that really are inexplicable, I think it's difficult to, have his backing at this point. I mean, the guy, he's old. He's really old. And I'm not saying the game's passed him by, but he still manages like he used to manage with the A's and the Cardinals, that, he's the smartest guy out there and doesn't have to give you an explanation. But sometimes he does things that are just head-scratching. And I think it gets to a point where if this young team underperforms, and again, a lot of it's had to do with injuries, But by the end of the season, if they underperform, I think we'll see a managerial change.
Well, he called for the only intentional walk I've ever seen on a 1-2 count, and I don't think I'll ever see that again. Rob, appreciate you, man.
And the thing was, if he had a good explanation for it, fine, but he gave some BS explanation. And you're like, dude, just tell us why you did it instead of making things up. I mean, it's and I love Tony LaRussa. He's one of my favorite guys that I've ever covered in sports, but sometimes he's tough to figure out.
35 years ago, his way of thinking was totally different than everybody else. Now, things change in 35 years.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.